The Wedding Night Secret. On a glittering night in Los Angeles, while everyone else slept peacefully in their homes, a young man stood by the window of a massive Beverly Hills mansion, staring out at the city lights below with a heart full of confusion and longing. His name was Ethan, and he was the only son of one of California's wealthiest real estate families, a family whose name was whispered with both respect and envy across the entire West Coast. Ethan had everything a person could dream of: a sprawling estate with marble floors and crystal chandeliers, a garage filled with luxury sports cars that most people only saw in magazines, and unlimited access to money that could buy anything his heart desired. But despite all this wealth and privilege, there was an emptiness inside him that no amount of money could fill, a void that kept him awake at night, staring out at the world he felt disconnected from. That particular night, Ethan's mind was racing with thoughts he couldn't silence, thoughts that centered around a girl he had met just a few weeks ago, a girl who had somehow managed to break through the walls he had built around his heart. Her name was Rita, and she came from a working-class family on the other side of town, a world so different from his own that it might as well have been another planet. Rita's face wasn't the kind you'd see on magazine covers or social media influencer pages. It was simple, honest, and unpretentious. But there was something extraordinary in her eyes, a spark of genuine warmth and kindness that had captivated Ethan from the very first moment he saw her. He had met Rita at a small coffee shop in downtown Santa Monica, one of those cozy places where the coffee was served in mismatched mugs and the baristas knew their regulars by name. A place Ethan had wandered into on a whim one rainy afternoon when he was trying to escape the suffocating expectations of his privileged world. That day, Rita's simplicity and her genuine, unguarded smile had touched something deep inside Ethan's soul, cutting through all the superficiality and pretense he had grown up with. Ethan had said to himself that day, with a certainty that surprised even him, "Rita is the one I've been searching for all my life." But when Ethan gathered the courage to tell his family about Rita, about this incredible girl who had stolen his heart, they immediately tried to stop him, their faces filled with disapproval and concern. His father, a stern man who had built his fortune through ruthless business deals and calculated risks, had said in a voice that left no room for argument, "Ethan, you're the son of a multimillionaire family. A family with a reputation to uphold and connections that span the entire country. How can you possibly marry a girl from a poor family? Someone who doesn't understand our world, our responsibilities, our way of life?" But Ethan, for perhaps the first time in his privileged life, refused to back down, his voice steady and determined as he faced his family. He told them with unwavering conviction, "I love Rita with all my heart, and I want to marry her. And nothing you say or do is going to change that." Eventually, after days of arguments and tense conversations that left everyone exhausted, Ethan's family reluctantly agreed, convincing themselves that perhaps Rita was actually a good girl who would make their son happy. And they set a date for the wedding that would unite these two vastly different worlds. The wedding day arrived with all the grandeur and spectacle that came with a wealthy California family's celebration, and the entire city seemed to be buzzing with gossip about how a millionaire's son was marrying a working-class girl, their story becoming the talk of country clubs and dinner parties across Los Angeles. But when night fell and the celebrations finally quieted down, when all the guests had gone home and the champagne glasses had been cleared away, something happened that would send shockwaves through both families and change everything they thought they knew. On their wedding night, when Ethan and Rita were finally alone in their beautifully decorated bedroom, Rita suddenly bowed her head and began to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and painful inside her. Ethan, alarmed and confused, asked her gently, "Rita, what's wrong? Why are you crying on what should be the happiest night of our lives?" Rita wiped her tears with trembling hands and said in a voice barely above a whisper, "Ethan, I need to tell you the truth about something I've been hiding." Ethan's heart began to pound in his chest like a drum, fear creeping into his mind as he asked, "What truth are you talking about, Rita? Have you been keeping something from me?" Rita remained silent for what felt like an eternity, just looking at Ethan with eyes filled with pain and regret, before she finally said softly, her voice breaking, "Yes, Ethan, there's something I haven't told you, something important that you need to know." Rita's words created a strange, unsettling fear in Ethan's heart, the kind of fear that comes when you realize the foundation of your happiness might be built on sand. He took Rita's hand in his, holding it tightly as if that physical connection could keep his world from falling apart, and said with as much reassurance as he could muster, "Rita, tell me the truth. Whatever it is, I'll stand by you. I promise you that." Rita took a deep breath, gathering her courage, and then slowly began to tell her story, each word seeming to cost her something precious. She said, her voice filled with shame and sorrow, "Ethan, you don't really know who I am or where I come from. My family is extremely poor. We have almost nothing to our name, barely enough to get by from day to day. My father runs a small convenience store in a rough neighborhood, working 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. And my mother does housekeeping and takes care of elderly people to bring in a little extra money. The three of us live together in a tiny one-room apartment where the walls are paper thin, and we can hear our neighbors' conversations, where there's barely enough space to turn around, and where we've learned to make do with almost nothing." Ethan listened to Rita carefully, nodding his head to show he was paying attention. "Rita, what difference does any of that make? I love you for who you are, not for what you have or where you come from. Your poverty doesn't change my feelings for you one bit." But Rita, still crying, said in an even more distressed voice, "But Ethan, that's not everything I've been hiding from you. There's something else, something much worse." Ethan's face became serious, concern etching lines across his forehead as he asked, "What else is there, Rita? Please, tell me everything. No more secrets between us." Rita remained silent for another long moment, looking up at the ceiling as if seeking answers from somewhere beyond this room, and then she spoke words that would shatter Ethan's understanding of his own family. "Ethan, I know a secret about your family, something terrible that happened years ago." Ethan was shocked, his mind racing to understand what she could possibly mean as he said, "What kind of secret?" "What are you talking about, Rita?" Rita closed her eyes, as if what she was about to say was too painful to speak while looking at him. And then she said, "Ethan, your father committed a terrible betrayal against my father. He destroyed our family's future." Ethan's heart began to race even faster, pounding so hard he thought it might burst from his chest as he asked, "What do you mean? What kind of betrayal are you talking about?" Rita's voice was steady now, strengthened by the truth she was finally releasing. "Your father trapped my father in a business deal that was designed to fail from the beginning. A cruel scheme where my father invested everything he had, his life savings, money borrowed from friends, even his parents' retirement fund. And then your father took all that money and left us with nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's why our family is so poor now, struggling every single day just to survive. Ethan's face turned pale, the color draining from his cheeks, as if all the blood in his body had suddenly decided to abandon him. And he said in disbelief, "Rita, do you really believe that my father did such a horrible thing to your family?" Rita nodded her head solemnly and said, "Yes, Ethan, I heard it directly from my father, who has carried this pain and bitterness for years. They are deeply hurt by what happened, scarred by the betrayal." Ethan's mind became tangled in confusion and doubt, his thoughts spinning in circles as he considered this devastating information, and thought to himself, maybe Rita is telling the truth. Maybe my father does make decisions that hurt other people, business deals where he doesn't care about the human cost, where profit is all that matters. He looked at Rita with determination building in his eyes and said, "Rita, I will help you and your family. I'll talk to my father and get to the bottom of this." But Rita, placing her hand on his arm to stop him, said urgently, "No, Ethan, you can't do anything for me or my family. This is the biggest mistake of my life, marrying you and bringing this shame and disgrace to your family." Ethan's heart melted with compassion and love as he pulled Rita into his arms, holding her close as he said, "Rita, you haven't made any mistake at all. I will stand by you no matter what happens." However, when Ethan confronted his father the next day in his father's massive office overlooking downtown Los Angeles, demanding answers and explanations, his father denied everything completely, his face showing nothing but innocence and confusion. His father said with conviction that seemed genuine, "Ethan, this is all a lie, complete fabrication. Rita and her family are trying to deceive you and manipulate you." Ethan felt that perhaps his father was telling the truth, that maybe he was the victim here. But still, despite his doubts, he reassured Rita of his commitment. He said to her later that evening, "Rita, I will stand by you. Together we will bring the truth to light, whatever that truth turns out to be." Rita looked at Ethan with tears streaming down her face and smiled through her pain, saying, "Ethan, you're doing so much for me, putting everything on the line. But I'm afraid that maybe this truth is too big, too dangerous for us to handle." Ethan held Rita's hand firmly, intertwining his fingers with hers, and said with absolute determination, "Rita, together we will bring this truth out into the open, no matter what it costs us." In this way, Ethan and Rita made a decision together to uncover the truth, to shine light into the dark corners where secrets had been hiding for years. But as time passed and they dug deeper into the past, they discovered that this truth was far more complicated and painful than they had ever imagined. One day, when Ethan was in his father's office looking for some documents related to a different matter, he stumbled upon a file hidden in a drawer that hadn't been opened in years. In that document, it was clearly written that his father had indeed betrayed Rita's father, that the story Rita had told him was true, that his father had used deceptive business practices to steal from an innocent family. Ethan's heart shattered into pieces as he read the words on that page, feeling as if the ground beneath his feet had suddenly disappeared. He thought to himself in anguish, "My father really did betray Rita's family. He destroyed their lives for his own profit." He told Rita what he had discovered, showing her the documents with shaking hands. And Rita's face became grave and serious as she processed this confirmation of what she had always known. She asked, her voice hollow, "Ethan, what will we do now? How do we move forward from here?" Ethan said with fierce determination, "Rita, we will bring this truth out into the open, whatever the consequences may be. We will stay together through all of this." Ethan and Rita's decision was clear. They would expose this truth no matter what obstacles stood in their way, regardless of the personal cost to their own happiness. But as they moved forward with their plan, as they began gathering more evidence and preparing to confront both families, new challenges began to emerge from every direction, like storms gathering on the horizon. Ethan's father tried everything in his considerable power to stop them, using every resource at his disposal, every connection he had cultivated over decades in business. He said to Ethan in a voice that mixed pleading with threat, "Son, you need to drop this matter right now. This is all lies and manipulation, and you're being used." But Ethan refused to back down, standing his ground despite the pressure. He said firmly, "Father, I've seen the documents with my own eyes. You betrayed Rita's father in a terrible way, and I want to make this right, to restore what was stolen." Ethan's father's face became dark and serious, storm clouds gathering in his expression as he said angrily, his voice rising to a shout, "Ethan, if you go through with this, if you expose our family's private business matters, then I will not consider you my son anymore. You'll be cut off completely, disowned." Ethan's heart felt heavy, weighted down by the impossible choice before him, as he thought, "Maybe I will lose my father forever. Maybe I'll be cast out of the only family I've ever known. But I can't lose Rita. I won't abandon her and her family." Rita tried to convince Ethan to reconsider, to think about what he was giving up, saying with concern in her eyes, "Ethan, maybe we should just let this matter go, forget about the past and move forward. I don't want you to lose your family because of me." But Ethan refused once again, his jaw set with determination as he said, "Rita, I will stand by you no matter what. We will bring this truth into the light." Meanwhile, Ethan's family began to apply pressure on Rita's family, using their wealth and influence to intimidate and threaten them into silence. They went to Rita's father's small store and said in voices that left no doubt about their seriousness, "If you people take this matter any further, if you continue to make accusations against us, we will frame you for crimes you didn't commit. We will destroy whatever little you have left." Rita's father became frightened, the color draining from his face as he realized the power arrayed against him. He said to Rita with resignation in his voice, "Daughter, we should let this matter go and move on with our lives. We can't fight against these people. They're too powerful. They have too many resources." Rita's heart broke as she looked at her father, seeing the defeat in his eyes, and she said, "Father, but we should demand our rights. We should stand up for what's right." Her father, wiping tears from his weathered face, said, "Daughter, we are poor people with no power, no connections, no way to fight back. We cannot battle against these wealthy people who can crush us like insects." Rita bowed her head, shame and frustration washing over her as she thought, "Maybe my father is right. Maybe he's being realistic. Maybe we truly cannot fight against these powerful people." But Ethan reassured Rita of his unwavering support, pulling her close and saying, "Rita, we will make this right. I will stand by you no matter what happens." Then one day, Ethan called a big meeting in his father's office, a formal gathering where truth would finally be confronted. He invited all the members of his family, calling them one by one and insisting they attend. And he also invited Rita's family, telling them it was time for everything to come out into the open. When everyone was seated together in that large conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife, Ethan showed everyone the documents he had found and said in a voice that rang with conviction, "Father, you betrayed Rita's father in business. You stole from them. This is the truth, and there's no denying it anymore." Ethan's father's face turned red with anger and humiliation as he said furiously, spitting out the words, "Ethan, you have disgraced us. You've brought shame to our family name in front of everyone." Rita's father also remained quiet at first, overwhelmed by the moment. And then he looked at Ethan and said, "Son, what you've done here today is a very big thing, exposing secrets that were buried for years. But we are afraid of what will happen next, what the consequences will be." Ethan looked at Rita's father with respect and said, "Sir, don't be afraid. We will make this right. We will restore what was taken from you." Meanwhile, Ethan's family tried to stop him one more time, making one final attempt to maintain their control over the situation. They said in voices filled with desperation and anger, "Ethan, if you do this, if you continue down this path, we will throw you out of the house. You'll be on your own with nothing." Ethan's heart felt heavy and burdened, the weight of potential loss pressing down on him, as he thought, "Maybe I will lose my family forever. Maybe I'll never be welcome in this house again. But I cannot lose Rita. She's worth more than all of this." Rita held Ethan's hand tightly, squeezing it as she said, "Ethan, maybe we should let this matter go. Maybe it's not worth tearing your family apart." But Ethan refused yet again, his voice strong and clear as he said, "Rita, we will make this right. I will stand by you." Then one day, when everything seemed to be moving toward resolution, when it looked like justice might finally be served, Ethan's father called him aside for a private conversation. He said with a mixture of sadness and resignation in his voice, "Ethan, what you have done is a very big thing, forcing our family to confront uncomfortable truths, but I will give you one chance to make this right." Ethan's heart filled with joy and hope, a weight lifting from his shoulders as he said, "Father, I am your son. I will never leave you, never turn my back on you completely." A few days after the wedding night confrontation, Ethan and Rita found another document that would change everything they thought they knew, that would add another layer to this already complicated story. This document came from Rita's father's old briefcase, a worn leather case he had been carrying for years, which he had always been afraid to show to Ethan, afraid of what it might reveal. Ethan read the document carefully, his eyes growing wider with each line, and he was shocked by what he discovered. It was written clearly, in legal language that left no room for misinterpretation, that his father had seized Rita's family's land and property through fraudulent means and transferred it into his own name, stealing their inheritance. This land was now in one of the most expensive areas of Los Angeles, near Beverly Hills, and its value had grown to be worth tens of millions of dollars, a fortune built on someone else's stolen dreams. Ethan's mind began to open, understanding dawning like sunrise after a long, dark night, as he thought, "My father didn't just betray Rita's family financially. He stole their entire inheritance, their future, everything they had worked for generations to build." He told Rita, his voice filled with anger and determination, "Rita, this document proves that your family was actually wealthy once, that you should be living a completely different life. My father made you poor. He stole everything from you." Rita's eyes filled with tears that spilled down her cheeks as she said, "Ethan, I wanted to keep you away from this painful truth. I wanted to protect you from this knowledge. But love has brought me down this difficult path, and now we're both trapped in it." The next day, Ethan called his father into a room for a confrontation that had been building for weeks. He placed the documents in front of his father on the polished mahogany desk and said in a voice shaking with emotion, "Father, what is this? Why did you betray Rita's family in such a terrible way, stealing not just money, but their entire future?" Ethan's father's face turned pale, all the color draining away as he looked at the documents. And then he spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Ethan, all of this isn't as simple as it looks. I had my reasons for what I did. Reasons you don't understand," Ethan said angrily, his voice rising. "What reason could there possibly be for making an innocent family poor, for stealing their land and livelihood? What justification exists for that kind of cruelty?" Just then, Rita's father also arrived at the office, having been summoned by Ethan for this final confrontation. He said, his voice heavy with years of suppressed pain, "Ethan, I want to tell you a truth that you need to hear." Everyone was shocked, turning to look at him with surprise and anticipation. Rita's father continued, his words coming out in a rush now that he had started. "I forced my daughter to marry you. I pushed her toward you deliberately. I wanted this truth to come out into the open, and I wanted us to get our rights back, to reclaim what was stolen from us." Ethan's heart broke into pieces, feeling betrayed from yet another direction as he looked at Rita and asked, "Were you part of this plan too? Was our entire relationship a manipulation?" Rita, wiping tears from her face with trembling hands, said desperately, "No, Ethan, I love you truly and deeply. My father didn't tell me about any of this. I didn't know about his plans. I'm learning about this for the first time today, just like you are." Ethan's father bowed his head in shame and said, his voice barely audible, "I made a mistake all those years ago. A terrible mistake, but at that time I had no other option. My business was failing, drowning in debt, and I needed money desperately to save everything I had built." Rita's father said angrily, his voice shaking with rage that had been building for decades. "You ruined my life. You destroyed my family's future for your own profit. I will never forgive you for what you did to us." Ethan felt that he could no longer understand his father, that the man he had looked up to his entire life was a stranger, and he looked at Rita and said, "Rita, I will stand by you. We will bring this truth into the open where everyone can see it." But when Ethan and Rita decided to take these documents to the police, to finally involve the authorities in seeking justice, they discovered something that shook them to their core. The police examined the documents carefully, running tests and checking records, and then informed them that these documents were fake, that someone had created them specifically to frame Ethan's family and make them look guilty. Ethan and Rita were both shocked, unable to process this new twist. Ethan asked in disbelief, "How is this possible? These documents looked completely authentic to me." The police explained, "These documents were forged by someone skilled in deception. Perhaps this is the work of Rita's father, trying to entrap your family with false evidence." Ethan's heart broke once again, feeling as if he was being torn in multiple directions as he looked at Rita and asked, "Rita, did your father deceive me, manipulate me from the very beginning?" Rita's tears began flowing like rivers down her face as she said, "Ethan, I didn't know any of this. My father didn't tell me the truth about anything he was planning." Ethan's father smiled with satisfaction, vindication in his expression as he said, "Son, did you see? Rita's family tried to frame us with fake documents. They tried to destroy us, but they failed." But Ethan still had doubts gnawing at him, uncertainty that wouldn't go away. He asked Rita directly, looking into her eyes for any sign of deception, "Rita, does your father want revenge against my father? Is that what all of this has been about?" Rita said loudly and emphatically, shaking her head, "No, no, no. I love you, Ethan. This is all my father's doing, not mine. I don't even want to see him anymore after what he's done." Meanwhile, Rita's father delivered another shocking blow to everyone assembled in that room. He said with determination in his voice, "Ethan, my daughter is your wife now. Your blood is also part of our family now through this marriage. You cannot abandon us." Ethan's head began to spin, feeling dizzy with confusion, as he felt that he had fallen into a trap a carefully constructed web from which there might be no escape. But then Rita showed him another document, pulling it from her bag with trembling hands. This document was genuine, verified and authentic, and in it was written clearly that Ethan's father had indeed seized Rita's family's land through illegal means, that everything Rita had said from the beginning was true. Ethan looked at the document and shouted, his voice filled with anguish and betrayal, "Father, how is this possible? Why did you give us such a big deception, lying to us all this time?" Ethan's father's face turned pale, guilt written across every feature as he said quietly, "Ethan, I did all of this for you. I wanted your future to be secure. I wanted you to have every advantage in life, even if it meant doing terrible things." Rita looked at Ethan and said, her voice breaking with emotion, "Ethan, even knowing your father's betrayal and deception, I still love you with all my heart. But now I feel that our love has also become part of this deception, tainted by all these lies and manipulations." Ethan's heart broke completely, shattering into countless pieces as he pulled Rita into his arms and said, "Rita, I will stand by you. We will bring this truth into the open, whatever it takes, whatever we have to sacrifice." Ethan's father's face became serious and grave as he carefully read through the genuine document, and then his eyes became wet with tears he had been holding back for years. He looked at Rita's father and said, his voice cracking with emotion, "I made a terrible mistake years ago. I want to ask for your forgiveness, though I know I don't deserve it." Rita's father was shocked, not expecting this admission, and he said, "Your apology won't bring back our life, won't restore the years we lost, struggling in poverty." Ethan said to his father with firmness and conviction, "Father, you have to help Rita's family in every possible way. You have to make amends for what you did." Ethan's father nodded his head slowly and said, "Yes, son, I will return the land to Rita's family, and I will compensate them for every loss they suffered, for all the years of hardship they endured because of my actions." Rita's father's heart melted, his anger beginning to soften as he said, "I also made a mistake, a terrible error in judgment. I wanted to trap your family through my daughter, using her as a pawn in my quest for revenge. But now I have learned how important love truly is, how it transcends all our petty grievances and desires for vengeance." Rita hugged her father tightly and said, tears streaming down both their faces, "Father, I forgive you for what you've done, but we have to face the truth together, all of us, and move forward honestly." Ethan's father took immediate action, not wanting to delay justice any longer. He returned the land to Rita's family, transferring the deeds back into their name. And he also gave them millions of dollars in compensation for all the years of lost income and opportunity. Rita's family's situation changed completely overnight, transformed from poverty to wealth. They had everything again. The financial security they had lost so many years ago. But now their hearts were full in a different way, filled not just with relief, but with something deeper and more meaningful. One day, when everything had finally calmed down and settled into a new normal, when the dust of all these revelations had begun to clear, Ethan and Rita sat together in their home's beautiful garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and the sound of birds singing in the trees. Ethan looked at Rita with love and wonder in his eyes and said, "Rita, do you know how much you've changed my life? How you've transformed everything I thought I understood about the world." Rita smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, and said, "Ethan, I just wanted to prove that my love was true, that despite everything complicated and messy about our situation, my feelings for you were always real. Ethan pulled Rita into his arms, holding her close as he said, "You've taught me that love is more valuable than anything else in this world, more precious than money or property or social status. You've shown me what really matters in life." Then one day, both families sat together around a large dining table, sharing a meal and honest conversation. Rita's father said, his voice filled with humility and newfound wisdom, "I trapped my daughter in this web of revenge and deception, but now I understand that there is nothing bigger than love, no goal more important than genuine human connection." Ethan's father also apologized again, his pride finally broken down completely. "I betrayed your family in terrible ways, but now I want to make it right, to spend whatever time I have left trying to repair the damage I've done." In this way, both families were united again, brought together by the power of Ethan and Rita's love, which had erased every mistake and healed old wounds. But when everything seemed to be going well, when peace finally seemed possible, Rita's father revealed another truth that would shake everyone to their core. He said, his voice trembling with the weight of what he was about to reveal, "Ethan, Rita is your wife, but she came with a deep secret that I've been hiding all these years." Ethan was shocked, his mind reeling as he asked, "What secret, sir? What else could there possibly be?" Rita's father took a deep breath, gathering his courage for this final revelation, and said words that would change everything. "Rita is your sister, Ethan. You two are blood relatives." Ethan's senses flew away, his mind unable to process what he was hearing, as he said, "What? How is this even possible? This can't be true." Rita's father revealed the complete truth, his words tumbling out in a confession that had been building for years. "Many years ago, your mother and I were part of the same family. We were close, but due to a terrible misunderstanding and circumstances beyond our control, we were separated and went our different ways. Rita is your half-sister from a previous relationship your mother had." Ethan and Rita both began to cry, tears streaming down their faces as the full weight of this revelation crashed over them like a wave. Ethan said, his voice breaking, "Rita, you're my sister. So what about our love? What about everything we've been through together?" Rita bowed her head in shame and sorrow and said, "No, Ethan, we are not siblings. My father has made up this entire story, fabricated it for reasons I don't understand." Ethan's father glared at Rita's father with fury and betrayal in his eyes and said, "You've deceived us again, playing another cruel trick on our families." Rita's father said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, "No, this is the truth. Rita is your half-sister, born from a relationship that happened before your mother married your father. I hid this truth for years because I wanted your family to forgive me, to help us get back what was stolen from us. And I thought this revelation might be the key." Everything finally made sense to Ethan, all the pieces falling into place, as he looked at Rita and said, his voice filled with confusion and pain, "Rita, you are my sister. But my love for you hasn't changed. It's still there, even knowing this truth." Rita wiped her tears away and said, "Ethan, I am your sister. Our love was wrong from the beginning, based on a relationship that should never have been romantic." Ethan's heart broke completely, shattered beyond repair, as he said, "No, Rita, our love was true and genuine. Even though we are siblings, even though society says it's wrong, our love was real." Rita's father said, trying to explain the complicated history, "Ethan, your mother and I loved each other once, many years ago, before you were born. But due to a misunderstanding and family pressure, we were separated and forced apart. Rita is your half-sister from that relationship." Ethan looked at his mother, seeing the confirmation in her eyes, her face wet with tears she could no longer hold back. He asked, needing to hear it from her directly, "Mother, is this the truth? Is Rita really my sister?" Ethan's mother nodded her head and said yes, her voice barely audible. "Yes, son, it's true. I hid this truth because I wanted you to be happy, because I thought keeping this secret was the best way to protect you from pain." Ethan's mind began to open fully, understanding finally dawning as he looked at Rita and said, "Mita, you are my sister, but my heart still feels the same way about you, still holds that same love." Rita smiled through her tears and said, "Ethan, we are siblings. We have to accept this truth and move forward accordingly, finding a new way to love each other." Ethan hugged Rita tightly and said, "Yes, Rita, we are siblings, but our love is still true, even if it has to take a different form now." In this way, the truth came out that Rita was Ethan's half-sister, but their love had erased every mistake and brought both families back together in an unexpected way. Both families were united again, brought together not by romance, but by something deeper, genuine human connection, and the courage to face difficult truths. They confronted reality together, supporting each other through the pain of these revelations. In the end, Ethan and Rita decided that they would stay together as siblings, as family, supporting each other in a different but equally powerful way. They reunited their families, healing the wounds that had been festering for decades, and all the people in Los Angeles who knew their story saluted their honesty, their courage, and their willingness to choose truth over comfortable lies, choosing to face reality no matter how painful it might be, proving that sometimes the strongest love is the one that can transform itself into something new when circumstances demand it. Conclusion. And so, what began as a love story transformed into something even more powerful, a story about truth, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Ethan and Rita's journey taught both families that honesty, no matter how painful, is always better than living in the shadows of lies and deception. Their courage to face the truth, even when it shattered their romantic dreams, brought healing to wounds that had festered for decades. Sometimes love doesn't look the way we expect it to. Sometimes it transforms into something different, but equally profound, proving that the strongest relationships are built on truth, forgiveness, and the courage to do what's right, even when it costs us everything we thought we wanted. This story reminds us that wealth without integrity is worthless, that family bonds can survive the most devastating revelations, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of what we desire and embracing what's true. Ethan and Rita lost their romantic love, but they gained something perhaps even more valuable: an honest relationship, reunited families, and the peace that comes from living in the light of truth rather than the darkness of secrets. If this powerful story of love, betrayal, and redemption touched your heart, please show your support by hitting that like button. It really helps this channel grow and allows me to bring you more incredible true stories like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss our next emotional journey. We post new real-life stories every week that will move you, inspire you, and make you think about what truly matters in life. Now I want to hear from you in the comments below. What would you have done in Ethan's position? Would you have fought for the truth even if it meant losing your family and discovering your love was your sister? Or would you have walked away from the whole situation? Do you think Ethan's father truly deserved forgiveness? Share your thoughts. I read every single comment and love hearing your perspectives on these complex moral situations. If you enjoyed this story, check out our playlist of similar emotional tales in the description below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message about truth and redemption, please share this video with them. Thank you so much for watching, for being part of this incredible community, and for joining me on this emotional journey. Remember, the truth might hurt, but lies destroy. Choose honesty, choose love, and choose courage. Until next time, take care of yourself and the people you love. I'll see you in the next story.